Appreciate it.
What's up, people? I'm Jonathan Wiseman. This is another episode of The Grit, and today I got a real good old friend with me. It's Rene Rodriguez of RNB Construction. RNB Construction, right?
Yes, sir. RNB Construction.
RNB Construction, and you're an earth mover, and you're going to tell us more about what y'all do with the business.
Yes, sir.
But first, it's been a long time. I want to thank you for coming on the show, bro.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you. It's been a while. I felt like I used to see you all the time, and I haven't seen you in a long time, so it's good, man.
It has been. That was back in the club days.
Yeah.
How long ago was that? Well, shit, about
10 years, I guess.
10 years. That's a long
maybe
time.
more, 11, 10, 11.
Going way back.
Yeah. It was. I got this scar right here, right around that, about 2009. Right around that.
When you remember times by scars and shit, that's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Well, we're going to skip over those stories.
That's another time.
Already. Well, I want to learn more about R&B, so I'm going to have you tell me about it. But I kind of want to go back and learn a little bit more about you. I mean, we know each other a little bit from the old school, but I want to dig in a little bit deeper and know who Rene Rodriguez is, where you come from, and all that good shit. So let's take it back to the beginning, man. Where'd you grow up at?
Okay, so I'm from Houston.
Okay.
I'm originally from Houston, Texas. My parents, they're from here as well. I grew up out here. When I left for a while, I was in the Marine Corps, and then when I came back, I was in sales for a while, and for a long time, for about 13 years, and I felt like that wasn't my calling, and then I got into the business I'm in now.
Okay, cool. Well, and we're going to dive into that, into the construction company. But you said Marine Corps.
Yes, sir.
First, thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
That's some dope shit. I mean, it's guys like you are the reason why I'm sitting in, place where I'm at. So I really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Yes, sir.
So what year did you go to the Marine? Did you go straight out of high school? How did that unfold? Where'd you go to high school at?
I went to high school out here in Cypress, Cy Falls.
Okay.
Where I graduated, and I never thought about going to the military. Never crossed my mind. And then one day I was driving. I remember it was right around the time Columbine happened. Right around that time. I'm old. And I just one day I called my dad and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go to the Marine Corps. And he said, really? And I said, meet me at the recruiter's office. And it literally happened like that.
Wow.
In October, I left in January of 2000. I graduated in 99.
So you went in October, and 3 months later, 4 months later, well, I guess that'd have been 5 months. You were off.
Well, October, November, December, 3 months almost.
Oh, fuck, I can't even count.
Yeah, man. It's all right, bro. Yes.
Don't tell it. We'll scratch that shit out.
Nix that.
No, I'm just playing.
It was it was back in the day where you didn't have to be in MEPS, the delayed entry program, very long. I just signed up, did all my tests, and I left January 11th.
Where'd they fly you out to?
I went to San Diego, MCRD.
How was it on the way out?
Well,
what was going on through your mind?
I have, for whatever reason, I can't remember where I put my keys 2 minutes ago, but I can have vivid memories of I can tell you what you were, if you were smiling in a conversation we had 10 years ago, I don't know why. And I can vividly remember myself being like, I wasn't really worried about it, I remember. And then like the third day I got there and I'm like, yo, what am I doing here? The airport's right there. I'm sure I can make it across this field and I'll be back in Houston. And then I started thinking, well, damn, my dad's never going to let this one down. I'll never be able to go home again. So I stuck it out and went to Iraq and made it back in one piece.
How many years did you serve? 4
years in the Marine Corps and 2 years in the Army.
And what did you do in Iraq?
I was part of this, it was called Operation Southern Watch. What we did was, the war started March 20th, 2003, I believe, and we had went over there like in November of 2002, and we were part of an advanced team. We were taking supplies from Crete, Greece down to Bahrain, and I went with like 10 other Marines, and we went down the Suez Canal up into the Persian Gulf, and I remember we were sitting in the Persian Gulf when George Bush announced that, hey, we're going to war with Iraq, and
wow.
It's rock and roll.
Yeah. How were those times?
Looking back on it, it was kind of, the Marine Corps is like this, is like you love to complain, but you miss it. But out of 365 days, probably 285 of those days are like, man, tired of this bullshit,
Yeah.
But best times of my life.
I was gonna say, what were some of your best memories from those times?
I remember it was right when Lil Jon and the East Side Boys came out. You remember when that came out? And we would go to I was stationed at the first 2 years. I was up in this place called Bangor, Washington, in Silverdale. And I remember, in the Marine Corps, I was on a base. First off, it was a nuclear weapons base, and there was only 300 Marines there. And you're gonna kind of, in the military, it's just like you're gonna kind of connect with who you would connect with at home,
Sure.
on your time off. So we would go and hang out. And, I mean, no joke, bro. It'd be like 40 or 50 Marines in the club, and when that song, throw it up, motherfucker, boy,
The whole place would drop.
Man, we'd act a fool.
That's awesome.
And I was like, so those are probably some of the best times, man.
Tell me about one of your scariest moments out there. Was there ever a no shit moment?
Yeah, there's a few.
What's the one that stands out the most?
I remember we were going down the Euphrates, and I guess they were insurgents or somebody was shooting at us. We were on this boat, on this tugboat, and one of the guys who thought he was the hardest guy, he acted like he kind of froze behind the 50 cal. He just kind of stood there. And we call it turtle fuck, where you get a Kevlar and somebody else is wearing a Kevlar, you just hit them on top of the head. Well, it doesn't hurt or nothing, but it'll wake you up, you know. And so Sergeant ran over there and turtle fucked him, and he still stood there. And he kind of, and Sergeant pushed him out the way and he started shooting. And I'm like, yo, what's this guy doing on the cow, bro? You about to get us killed out here. But, that's one thing that stands out. But it wasn't. When you're out there, man, it's like the only thing you're worried about is like, yo, bro, I'm trying to get home. And I know you're trying to get home. So we need to watch each other's back to make sure we both get home. That exact when bullets are really flying down range.
Yeah, that's a different type of brotherhood I've never experienced, and can't imagine.
Yeah, it's like I still got friends that I was with at that time. We talk shit to each other on the phone, like as if we're in the barracks.
Yeah, that's
to
cool.
this day.
Well, again, man, I appreciate your service. Thanks for doing that
pleasure,
for us.
Man. My pleasure.
So let's talk about your safe trip home. So you make it home. How old are you by the time you get home?
About to 22, 23, I'm
okay.
saying.
Early 20s.
Yeah, early 20s. I had a friend who was in the Army, so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I said, let me, I kind of want to see what the difference of the Marines and the Army were. So if you're in the Marine Corps, you can go to any other service, and I think they'll promote you up, and you can go in without having to go to boot camp or anything. But you can't go, if you're from the Army or Navy or something, you can't just go into the Marine Corps.
Sure.
You got to go to boot camp. So I was like, let me try it. So I went to the Army afterwards, and major difference.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you stuck it out for 2 years. Did you like it, or major difference in a negative way?
I get to this unit, and I'm there. I'm a sergeant, and they say, hey, can you give a period of instruction, is what they call it, a class. They get a period of instruction on the weapon, the rifle. I was like, okay. So the whole company, that's what they call it, company was out there, and I'm looking around, and we have specialists, and these are E4, E5, higher up enlisted guys who are getting instruction on. I'm giving them an instruction on how to take apart a M16 and a bullet. And in my mind, I'm like, yo, this is basic knowledge right here. You learn this the first 2 days you go to boot camp, because every body in the Marine Corps is a rifleman. So, but in the Army, it's a little different. If you have you're a medic, you don't need to go to weapons training, and so on and so on. So a lot of them folks didn't know, and they were getting ready to go back to Iraq. And I went to my first sergeant. I was like, look, I'm not trying to get out of it because I just came back, to be honest. But I feel like if I go back with these guys, I might not make it back. And I remember her name. I don't know. I don't want to say. She went and wrote somebody. She's fine too. First sergeant, she went and did something, and I didn't have to go back that second time. So I stayed back with the unit, and I got out shortly after, and it worked out perfect. Cool. I felt like if I would have went back, it might have been a different story today.
Yeah, if you'd have gone back to the war.
Yeah, if I would have gone, especially with these guys who was like an engineer battalion. So it was like, man, I barely made it back with these Marines who are hardcore. We're in it every day, and now I'm going over here with these guys. Nah.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a risk not worth taking.
It definitely wasn't. I mean, it all happened for a reason. I got everything was good. I stayed back, and I always give classes and instructions to guys who are getting ready to deploy without teaching weapon safety and things like that till my time was done. So that's where they needed me to be.
That's good. Well, anywhere in there, you're playing a part. So
yeah, oh yeah.
Again, thanks for that contribution to us.
Yes, sir.
So you get back. Where do you head to? You head to Houston, or where do you go when you get back?
Yeah, I get back. I'm back in Houston. And then, my dad has always been in construction my entire life. He was always a superintendent, and so I've been out there my entire life. And I went to work from him for I guess 2 months or so, right when I got back. And then I got a place, and I remember thinking my entire life, you know, I never liked working out there as like a laborer on the shovel, or, you know, because I always felt like I was wasting time. I could be figuring something out, you know. And well, you got to pay your dues, and I did that my whole life. So I knew I didn't want to do construction when I got back. So I went into sales, and I did that for 13 years.
What type of sales?
Sold houses.
Okay.
I sold houses, and you know, I sold relatively speaking a decent amount some years, and enough to buy me a house and have a good life. But I never. It was never like a passion or dream or anything. So I was always doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's why I looking back now, I felt like I was never successful as I felt like I could have been in that field, you know?
Yeah. So it was a stepping stone, right, though? At least you brought in enough income to kind of get to the next phase. And then did that help you lead to what you're passionate about and getting into this business?
Well, no. The way that happened was like 2 years ago, I walked into my dad's office, and my dad used to do, he left the company he was with and started his own business and started R&B construction.
Okay.
And one day I walked into his office, and he was rubbing his temples like this, and I said, yo, what's the deal with this? He said, Rene, I'm gonna die in this seat. I can feel it. I'm gonna die. So what was happening was, he would do his estimating, and he'd go do the work with it. You know, he'd act as a superintendent, and then he'd do the billing and then pay the bills and all these things. And it was, at first, it worked out good for a number of years. It was him, 6 or 7 guys. He had like a couple machines, a trailer, and he'd go out and do a bunch of jobs, make money, pay his bill. Everything was good, but he had to work around the clock. Yeah. And then it started to get much bigger, and that's when I had walked into his office. And when he told me that, you know, my wife, she's an auditor, like an internal auditor for an oil and gas company. So she would go like to Equatorial Guinea or Israel and these places, and she would audit oil wells. So, you know, I went to her and I said, look, we got to make it work, but you know, I need for you to quit your job and work full time here, because we got to start setting his business up the way it's growing to be. Yeah. Because he can't handle it himself.
You got to be able to scale.
Right.
Do it the right way.
Right. So for a while, no, this was 3 years ago. I'm sorry. So for a whole year.
So all this was just 3 years ago.
Yes.
And I guess
he started the business 10 years ago now, but 3 years ago when I stepped in. Right. And that first year I was, let's say, 30%. 30% in, 70 still selling. Yeah. And my wife, you know, she went from making, you know, a great salary and all this, and we paid her a fraction of what she was making, just so we can start implementing processes and helping up. And then this last year and a half, 2 years is when I really was into it full force. And that all happened by, I think a big change in me happened that had to happen, that ultimately set me up to be in the position that I'm in now. Because looking back, had I not had that change a year and a half, 2 years ago, then I wouldn't be where I'm at in the position I'm in. Gotcha. That was something else.
And I want to dive into what that change was and hear that story. But first, for the audience, I want people to know what R&B construction is and exactly what it is that you do. Okay, so R&B construction, we specialize in hardscape and earth moving. So some of the, I don't know if you've ever been to the Dunleavy or Lost Lake over there, where on Allen Parkway, where all the chandeliers. Okay, so all that hardscape in there, the concrete, the waterfalls, we did that work in there. We do that type of hardscape work. We'll build bridge abutments, and we'll also do work for like Harris County Flood Control District for the Hurricane Harvey disaster relief. So I'll go in and rebuild bayous. So we cut out all the erosion and silt, and we'll replace it with rock and clay, and, you know, get it, you know, a bayou could be this wide when we get there, and then by the time we redo our thing, it's this wide, so it allows more water to channel through when the hurricanes come. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that work, when you're talking about the fountains and the ones that look cool with nice aesthetics, right. Are all of those for aesthetics, or do they all have a purpose as well, and y'all just try to make it look pretty?
Yeah, so what happens is, you know, architect for a developer, the architect will design it, and then we get the plans per spec, and we kind of, where we come in is we take that blueprint that the architect has designed, you know, such as those waterfalls there, and we bring them to life, and it's all set by elevations and grid point GPS points and things like that.
Gotcha. And how much of this, we were talking earlier about you weren't passionate when you were in sales and in real estate, and now you're in this. Is this something that you feel that you're passionate about? You love what you do, or is this a job?
Yeah. So when I did sales, it wasn't passion. It was money, pure money based. I would get a thrill from helping folks, of course, but that's not why I went to work. I went to work because I would always see, well, how much would I make? That type of deal. But now when I wake up every single day, it's not even comparable with the feeling that I get and from what it was. So it's absolute passion, and I don't know if it's a little bit of neurosis in there. There's a lot of things involved, but I think that especially in my line of work, in order to be in the position that I'm in, you got to be a little bit of crazy as well. So it's absolute passion.
I feel you. And how much of that is like playing in the sandbox game when you're in those big tractors and earth movers?
Well, my operators, we have some big track hoes. One of my machines is called a long arm. The boom on it's about 60 feet alone. And
60 feet?
Just the boom. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. So my operators, they've been on those machines. One of my guys has been on it for 32 years.
Wow.
He could pick up an apple off your head. So I typically don't mess with that side. Every now and again on the weekend, I'll mess around with them, but I don't get on them too much.
Yeah. It's always fun to get out there and play a little bit.
It is, yeah. I got some videos of my little boys in the machines, yeah.
Well, let's jump into the financial side of this. I want to talk more about the business for aspiring entrepreneurs that, are looking to get into construction, possibly moving earth or getting into concrete work and other things. What type of investment does somebody need financially to be able to get in this business? I know when I drive by and I see the big tractors on the truck or on a job site, it's like, how the hell does somebody afford a $500,000 tractor?
Right.
Do people start by renting them, or what is that process like? Or if somebody wants to get in this business, where the hell do they start?
Okay, so this business is real. Always say this is 10 times harder than selling a house, in the sense that there's so many moving parts and so many things can go wrong that you really have to find a way to position yourself to where, well, I'm not putting that much upfront money up, and I have this niche area to attach myself to somebody who will and trust me to do that work for them. And if you can't somehow get your machines into that agreement, then you shop the different rental places, and you find the machines that you absolutely need, and then you put that into your fixed costs and say, okay, I know I have to do X amount of concrete or X amount of earth moving to pay for this amount every single month. And you really have to watch those numbers and do it every single day, because I know it cost me about $9,000 a week in machines, just machines alone, not including payroll or anything else. So you do that times 4, do the math, and the times 12. So you have to do X amount regardless. That's saying nothing goes.
Yeah, that's just not even break even. That's just to cover the equipment.
Fixed costs. So it's not the best way to do it is I found for us is to and let's say nobody in this business. I think about this. I'm like, well, if somebody really doesn't know concrete or know hardscape or know this type of business, it's not something you're just going to go start and do. You have to have some experience in it.
Sure.
So the best way to do it would be rent machines and try to attach yourself to somebody who can help you with those things.
So I'm assuming starting small and slowly work your way up.
Yeah.
Not just knowledge-wise, but budget-wise.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much it's so important, your estimate, your numbers, and your budget. Mm-hmm.
And I know that you're talking about your wife took a cut. You obviously took a cut to go into business with your dad. Your wife being an auditor, did she actually audit the company before y'all made the decision?
No, she didn't. It was kind of one of those things where like either you have to do it because my dad. It
was do or die for the family business.
Do or die, yeah.
So you did what you had to do.
Yeah, we did it.
I commend that. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So working with this, what has been? Having that type of overhead. You're talking 30, 40 grand a month just to pay for the equipment. You got your other overhead, your employees, your payroll, the staff, anything else that you do. You're close to a 6-figure overhead a month.
Yeah, with me personally, not to get into too many details, it's close to about 80 to 100,000 a month. What what I found for myself in our business is that where we're really good at is getting in, doing the work, and getting out. So what I negotiate up front is I tell my GCs, like, look, you guys are a major construction company. You hire me to come in and do the work. And again, they know the work that we do. It's a small world. Everybody knows everything. You know the work that we're going to do and how we're going to do it right. But let me use your POs to buy all of the material. And then when I submit my invoice to you, because I'll also negotiate a net 15, because in this business, a big problem is getting paid.
Sure.
So sometimes it's net 30 or net 60. Well, by the time net 60 comes, or I've already spent that money 4 times. I already spent that. So you're always paying catch up. So what I've restructured the business to where I'll say, look, you hire me to do the work. The job is $500,000. I'm going to track every invoice, and we use this system called Basecamp. I'm going to track every invoice. I'm going to track every ticket, and I'm going to reconcile it with my invoice that I turn into you every 2 weeks. So let's say you owe me this 2 weeks, $80,000. 30,000 of it is material. Well, instead of me having these POs and owing these vendors and these things, you pay it and take out the 30,000 off the 80. So now you only have to pay me 50, and you still have a month or so to pay that 30 back to your PO anyway. Yep. So they love that. But the reason why I can do that is because they know for a fact that I'm not going to miss a receipt. The work is going to be done exactly like the blueprint says, and they know that I don't care who you have that works for you. Show me who they are, and I'm going to show you why I'm going to work harder than they are. Yep. And that's why they do it.
Well, obviously you've had to build a reputation. You've got to do good work. You got to have that behind you to back you. Otherwise, nobody's going to give you shit.
Absolutely.
Well, that's amazing that you've been able to build that. Mm-hmm. With that type of overhead. I mean, have you had some oh shit moments, like with
for almost every week for a year, every Friday, literally
when payroll comes, I get it
every Friday, and somehow or another, bro, the 11th hour, I always make it happen. I always make, we did.
I tell my wife the same thing. I call it miracles. Every day we're making miracles. Even back in the club business, it was every day making miracles happen.
Well, and it's important to me. And sometimes I'm too, my wife is, she's not gonna sugarcoat. She's not gonna give you praise. She doesn't give praise too much. So when she does give praise, it's valued much more. But the thing about her, she's a realist as well. Where I'm so optimistic about everything, just how I am, and I can't help it. That maybe sometimes it can cloud my judgment. It'd be like, no, it's gonna be fine. No, it's gonna be fine. Well, she's there to tell me that, it's not. Relax or whatever it is. But I look at it like, no matter what happens, you're gonna have those bad times. So every time we get a little victory every day throughout the day, you got to relish in that victory, because I guarantee there's going to be another L somewhere around the corner.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How's it working with family?
It's hard, man, but I think that it's doable. It's doable. Everybody just has to know their role and
stay in their lane.
Right. And I think if you run your business and you put in the work the way you're supposed to, you shouldn't have a problem, because people generally see, well, hold on. It doesn't matter that Johnny's my cousin. He's the boss, and I see him move all throughout the day. He doesn't fuck around, so I'm not even going to think to go in his lane. Yeah. And if you treat it that way, then you shouldn't have a problem.
Gotcha. And we were talking about some deep shit earlier that I really appreciated. Tell me what happened a couple years ago that changed everything for you.
Okay, so I felt like when I was in sales, I think that for me personally, and the type of houses I sold, a lot of things are based off of what you see and who has the nicest this or that. And I realized what would happen with me would, when I was at that time in my life, that if I was right in something and I knew I was right, then when I would respond, it was almost kind of with like a passive aggressive, kind of with maybe a little witty arrogance. And one day I'm thinking, I'm like, that's not who I am. I shouldn't be like, number one, I shouldn't be like that. Well, that transpired to a lot of things where I thought the things that because I wasn't doing wrong, or I wasn't arguing, or I wasn't doing these things, that I'm not the one in the wrong when I would act the way I would act with my wife or whatever it was. And one day, I was acting like that, and I was just getting into this business where now the passion has changed, but it's not all the way changed. But she sees that, and she kind of sees that, but I hadn't fixed myself internally at that time. So one day she's standing on the porch or on the driveway, and she's like, you know, Rene, I think I might be done. And I'm like, she never had said nothing like that to me before. And it was all based off of the way that I thought that I was right in some of the things that I was doing, when in reality, I wasn't right, but I just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And I felt like, well, if I go to work hard and I treat my family good, and I don't cheat, and I don't do these things, well, how am I in the wrong? Well, that's way more you have to do. I mean, you know, as a husband, all day, every single day. So when that happened, it was like, bro, I swear to God, it was like one.
You just had an epiphany,
bro. I mean, literally. And it hit me, and I was like, you know what? If I don't change, then I'm going to lose the most important thing to me in my life. And all because of my stubbornness and not willing to understand now that it's presented in front of you. And now it hit me that day like that, yo, you're wrong. I'm wrong. So, but I never knew I was wrong.
Yeah.
And then when I found out, I admitted it. And I changed. I literally, bro, changed everything about the way, every single part of my way of thinking and way of acting is changed.
I completely get it. I mean, same thing with my wife. And part of it is you're a product of your upbringing and the way that I was brought up and the way I was raised, broken home, older brothers. I live with my dad. They live with my mom. You know, he worked bell to bell, sun up to sundown. I raised myself. I didn't know any better. So I had 2 older brothers to look up to and took their advice as being the word. Right. And I was a fucking idiot.
Well, to be fair, you know, they're only going to teach you what they were also taught as well. I mean, if your parents told you this was the way it is your whole life, well, you're going to grow up thinking that's the way it is. So, but then you get to a point where it's like, well, hold up, that's not the way it is. And I'm not going to tell my sons that it's like that either. You know, I need my sons to understand that.
Well, it took me having a strong ass woman, my wife, coming into my life to whoop my ass into shape.
Oh yeah, man.
And to really, more so than that though, to really educate me.
Right.
I learned so much from learning from her family, and that environment and that surrounding a good Christian family. And it wasn't easy for her.
No, it's not, man.
I give that woman some damn credit for putting up with my dumb ass. Man. But I learned so much from having a strong woman by my side. So I completely get it when you speak about having one. Yeah. And it takes one to put you in check. And then once you let that go and you're able, and I'm still working on it. You know, all my shit ain't, trust me, it's still a work in progress.
Every day.
But that's when you really get to start enjoying life.
Right. So, you know, once you really start, see, and a lot of it has to do with, it's one thing to say, hey, you know, I said I was sorry, or I said this, or I'm not going to do this, but you really have to do it. It doesn't matter that you got to look at it from somebody else's perspective. It doesn't matter that that this little thing bothered me, and then I thought she was the one in the wrong because it bothered me. No, that's not her wrong. That's my wrong. If I fix that for myself, she's not going to want to do whatever it is that bothers me. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's hard, like you said, every day it's a work in progress.
Yeah, for sure. And how is it working with Pops? How's he doing? Does he love having y'all around? Or
Yeah. So my dad is crazy as hell, man. He, you know, he's boss. So I try to put him in a spot where, like, hey, you don't do anything except when we need something triple verified, we need your set of eyes, then you come and make sure. And then other than that, you go have lunch and go do whatever it is you do throughout the day.
Already. Who are the customers for RNB? Is it the city or is it contractors? You mentioned GCs earlier. So do you work for a lot of general contractors? Who is it that calls you and how's your phone ring?
So the way it works is a lot of my work is done with general contractors. I do work for Harris County Flood Control District, the Woodlands Development, the Woodlands Township, Houston Parks Board.
How do you go about getting those accounts? Where do you meet these people at? How do you get the leads?
Well, to be honest, Junior, my dad, he commercial construction business is like the good old boys. Everybody knows everybody. Yep. And you're based off your reputation and your quality of work. So when I came in, I was trying to
got grandfathered into it,
right? And the way it's always been set up was a sub would come out there, or a GC, whoever it was, would do the work. They'd buy all the material, they'd turn in their invoice, they'd get paid in 30 days. Well, like I mentioned earlier, to shift all of that, I had to come in and really prove to these GCs, like, oh, we don't do things like that no more. We do it like this, and it's not going to be wrong. And now those same GCs that were introduced to me, who we all worked with before, we still work for them, but now we do the earth moving side, because that's a new part of my business.
And so explain the difference in what you mean by earth moving.
So the hardscape side is concrete. We build retaining walls, dams, bridge abutments, anything hard, concrete. The earth movers, they do anything earth move wise. We'll dig out.
Like literally digging and moving.
Moving earth. Yep. So
exactly what it's
literally moving earth.
Didn't you see that?
We'll go dig out lagoons, lakes. We do all the bayou work, Harris County Flood Control District, that type of stuff.
All right, real cool. And so that's the latest. How long ago was it that you added that to the portfolio?
Well, so as I mentioned, I came in and I kind of took over a bad situation that I was trying to help get out of, and we're trying to figure it out. And I knew, like, I know we can do more. We can do to get ourselves out of this. We got to cut costs, and we got to find ways to save and be faster and do better. But I know we can do more. So I got to find out how we're going to do it. So we have these think tank sessions where my wife, in fact, she thought of this idea. We would go in, a few key employees in the office, and we say, okay, give us ideas on how you feel like you know somebody that may or may not need our service. Well, one of my employees, she said, hey, I know somebody who works at this big general contractor and project manager. I can probably get you an interview. Long story short, we met them. They offered us the Harris, because this Harris County Flood Control District work just got approved. So he said, hey, do you know how to do this work on the bayous? And I said, yeah, I know, we know how to do it. We'll take the contract. After us meeting them twice, they offered us this contract. It's a couple $1 million contract. To do that type of work, I knew that it was going to take a certain skill set, and we had nobody. We only did hardscape. But at that time, I told them yes, and we accepted that contract. And I said, I need 6 weeks to start. It was August 1st was the start date, but I said, give me till August 12th. And they said, okay, fine. So now, once we got that contract, and we were originally going to send it to one of our earth movers who does this type of work for us. But he said something the first week after we got that contract, we're buttoning things up. He said something to my dad that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And
what was that?
He said to my dad, he goes, hey, you tell Rene I'm not starting shit until he signs this contract. And I had spoken to him like maybe an hour before that, and he didn't say. Everybody know, we all know that what the deal was, and there was no reason for him to say that. Number one, to my dad, and number two, like that. You know, I looked at that as almost kind of like condescending, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not using him, but he's the only person we knew who knew how to do this type of work, and we were going to sub that contract out to him.
I said, fuck it, I'll start my own company doing it.
Well, right. So I said, Junior, we're not using him. My dad, I call him Junior. I don't like to say dad in front of everybody. Junior, we're not using him. And he goes, well, who are we going to have do it? And I said, well, we'll figure it out. We have 5 weeks left, but we'll figure it out. So my other general superintendent, we're on the bayou and we're looking. He goes, Rene, if you're asking for my recommendation, I say we don't do this job. We're biting off something we don't do, because it's very meticulous. There's a lot of stuff that has to go right. You have to read measurements and GPS signals and things. We don't do that work. I said, no, we'll figure it out. So I'm driving down 529, and right where I grew up, Addicts Exuma, the first bayou when one of the first bayous that was a bigger one that was being worked on happened to be on my way home. So Junior, in fact, he goes, hey, you see those guys working over there? I said, yeah. He goes, that's what we're doing. Maybe you go talk to them. I said, you know what? I'm going to go talk to him. So the very next day, I was driving by. I passed up the site, in fact. Then I got to the next light, which was Jackrabbit Road. I made a U-turn, and I said, let me go back over there. And the reason why it's relevant is because, I'll tell you in a second, I drive onto the job site, and I see them guys. They're doing the exact type of work, the exact work that we were going to do in this contract. Mm-hmm. That the day before, let me say this. I said, Raw, wouldn't it be something if I could get all that riprap, which is rock, all that riprap and those guys on the bayou in Hollister? He goes, wouldn't that be something? My uncle said this. And I said, man, but I got to figure out how we can do that. So I drive on the site and I say, hey, who's in charge here? And the guy goes, well, I'm the on-site superintendent. What's up? And I said, look, man, I'm going to be open with you. We got a contract that's coming up in about 4 or 5 weeks. It's this exact type of work. We don't know how to do this type of work, but do you think you have time to consult with me or maybe help me until I figure out how to do it? I have a few weeks to do it. He goes, I was talking to my wife last night and we were thinking about me finding some side work and making some money on the side. And I said, well, God led us to me because I need you on the side. I need you on the side. He goes, all right, let me think about it. I still have the video because he was showing me certain little tricks. He hopped in my truck. Long story short, we built a rapport. He hopped in my truck. I said, look, in the meantime, I got to make a showing at the bayou before I can officially start I'm officially supposed to start on the 12th, but I can go over there and maybe put some machines there, put a porta potty there, do some things there to show like we're making a presence because they've already granted me the 2 extra weeks. I'm supposed to start on the 1st. Do you think you have time? And I had another big job starting too. Do you think you had time to maybe on the weekends or your guys coming, I'll pay you cash those days? Long story short, I met with him 4 times. The 4th meeting, I knew, and he had done some work for me on the weekend. I paid him cash. He made a showing for me. He's done very well. The 4th meeting I meet him, I knew going into that meeting, I said, look, because he never made a commitment to me to come work extra on the side for me.
Sure.
He's just helping me. So I said, look, I need to have him some sort of commitment by this meeting when I walk, because I was meeting him at Taqueria on a Saturday. He had gotten off work. I need to have some kind of commitment from him when I leave this meeting. So as soon as I got to the meeting, I told him, I said, heck, Sosa, I said, look, I don't want you to think that me giving you extra money on the side to work, I can solve any problems that you have with money. It's not about that. But if there's something I can help you, I'm pretty resourceful, let me know and I'll do my best to try to help you. Because I thank you, Rene, I thank you. We eat lunch that day, or we were about to leave, and I'm like, fuck, man, he hadn't committed to me yet. So as we're about to leave, we're in the parking lot. He's standing by like a older SUV, and I said, "Hey man, what happened to your truck?" He goes, "Oh, Mr. Rene, don't laugh at me, don't laugh at me." But the day that I met you, the first day that I met you, on my way home, somebody hit me. They T-boned me, and it totaled my truck out. So, I'm dealing with the insurance. That the people didn't have insurance. It's been a big old mess, and he didn't go to work for a week or for 3 days after that day. So had I gone the next day, I wouldn't have saw him there.
Yeah.
Remember, that's why I made that U-turn. So I said, so he goes, "Look, man, let me show you my truck. I love this truck." So he showed me a truck, and it was like a 2005 Dodge Ram that was totaled. He goes, "Man, I love this truck." I said, "Look, Sosa." He goes, "Yeah, I'm driving my wife's SUV because it's been real hard on my family, but we're making it work." I said, "Sosa, look, I have that exact truck at my yard. It's a 2007 Dodge Ram. I was about to give it to one of my subs for some work. We were going to do like an exchange, but he messed up on the work, so I still have the truck. If it's going to help you and your family, you can come pick up that truck tomorrow because I appreciate everything you've done for me this far. And if you can just..." You can come pick that up and you can take that SUV to your wife, and if it'll help your family." And he looks at me and he takes his glasses off and he goes, "You would just let me take the truck?" I was like, "Well, yeah, because I trust that you're going to help me. Yeah, you can take it, especially if it's going to help your family."
Sure.
And he goes, he kind of looks down and he looks at me. He goes, "I'm going to put my 2 weeks notice in on Monday." Now, he's a superintendent for a major construction, way bigger than us,
Yeah.
He's been, when you're a superintendent, that's kind of a hard position to acquire. You don't just get.
Yeah, and it's harder to give up.
Exactly,
But,
especially when you're making good money.
Yeah.
So he said it right there on the spot. "I'm going to put my 2 weeks notice in on Monday." And I looked at him and I said, "Let's do it." So, but he says to me, "Rene, we need my crew, all my guys, the operators. That's the only way we're going to be able to do it." I said, "Okay, bring them. And if they don't come," he goes, "Well, I don't know if they're going to come." One of the operators had been at that construction company since the original owner opened that company 27 years ago.
Damn.
No, so he goes, "I don't know if they're all going to come." I said, "Look, it'll work out. We'll figure it out."
We'll figure it out.
Well, up until the Sunday before, okay, so he put his 2 weeks notice in on Monday, like he said. The 2 weeks notice that he put it in exactly from that day was August 12th, was the day that I told them
Your
start date. So, and the Sunday, the 11th, I got a phone call because I didn't know this entire time, and I told him, "Don't worry about it." He's like, he's like, "Rene, I don't think they're gonna come." Blah blah blah. There's 6 of them. I don't think they're gonna come. Blah. I said, "Well, don't worry about it. I got you. We'll figure it out." He's like, "All right." He believed in it, and I'm walking in church on Sunday the 11th, August 11th. Fact check that day, August the 11th. I'm walking in. As I'm grabbing the door, I'm opening. He calls me. He goes, "Hey, Rene." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "They're all coming. They'll be there tomorrow, 7 a.m." So that day, I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
That's God's work for sure.
So Monday morning, my guys are there, August 12th. They're working. The inspector who inspects for Harris County knew that I needed till the 12th. Later, I found out that he said that I had every intention of showing up August 12th. He said I was going to give you till noon. I had every intention of firing the sub that was on that bayou, but when he got there, he saw that it was that crew who had closed out the other bayous that had only been done since all this work has been granted from Harris County. So he said, when I saw that crew and I saw the amount of, he said, first I walked up and I saw the amount of work that had been done in that 5 hours since 12. And then I looked and I saw Sosa and that crew, and I'm like, I turned around immediately and I was like, I know we're good. And then I thought to myself when I got in the car, how the hell are they working for you now? Yeah. I said, well, that's a story for another day.
Yeah. And
it happened like that.
Well, man, I appreciate you sharing that story because it's, that's what real entrepreneurial spirit is. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Sometimes it's just those last minute miracles that happen. It's God's work. It's being at the right place at the right time. And, if that wouldn't have come through, if you wouldn't have met that crew, if you wouldn't have made that the U-turn, how fucked up of a situation could you have been in? That was ballsy. Man. You took a big fucking risk by taking that contract, and it all worked out. Yeah.
And so before I had met Hector and did that, that's the same riprap. I mean, that's the same crew that when I was driving, and I didn't even know them. I didn't even have the idea to go talk at the bayou at that time. That's the same crew. Because when I remember, I would drive down 529 and I'd look at that bayou and I would see those lines when he would cut, and I would think to myself, how the fuck is he cutting that so good? I would look at it and it was eye level, like a straight B line on that bayou. And that crew that I told my uncle, I said, man, what if I could have that crew in that riprap? That's the crew that I got now today.
And that happened.
Oh, bro.
That's amazing, bro. Yeah. That's amazing. Congratulations on all your success. And I do appreciate you coming on the show. Yeah. If there's somebody that's looking to get into this business or construction, what would be one bit of advice, one good nugget that you would leave with them or tell them to think about?
I think that the most important thing, 2 things for me personally. The most important 2 things that I feel somebody needs to have to open up this type of business or to lead men the way you have to in this business is you have to do everything with sincerity. Like everything that you do is for the personal gain of somebody else. It's not for me. It's not. You have to think that way, and you have to be able to push yourself when nobody else is able to push you. And people say this all the time, like, yo, man, when you really love what you're doing, it's not work. But I'm not in that category. I'm in a category where I can't stop. Like it's so much passion that I wouldn't know that's what pushes me every day. And you have to be able to have that love for this type of work to do it, because there's a lot of times you're going to take L's, and I take them every day, every single day. And I'm not nowhere near where I want to be, where I know we're going to be, but I know for a fact that, because I did it yesterday and I did it today, where I'll walk into a GC and say, look, let's say we did 4 million. That's where we kind of always stayed. Well, I'll walk into a GC yesterday and I told him, I said, look, let's partner up together, and I'll go tell this company who won a $50 million job, me and my GC, we'll do 40 million of this work, or give me a contract that's 6 million or 15, and we can do it. I know we can do it. And we never even were venturing into those waters. But the only way, the reason why I know is because of the dedication that everybody on my team puts in every single day, because they see me doing it.
That's that passion, that work ethic, and being a good leader.
Yeah, you have to put them before yourself.
What's the second thing?
you have to, well, the first thing I said was sincerity. So sincerity and that passion.
Gotcha.
Yep, sincerity. Like, my guys know that I'm never going to let them down. So that's why I feel like they don't mess up on a blueprint or something, because it's disappointment. Like, how am I going to disappoint somebody who they're never going to disappoint me? And that's how we treat each other.
I love it, man. I'm going to leave it on
Thank
that
you.
note right there,
Yes,
brother.
sir.
I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rene Rodriguez with RNB Construction. You need to move some earth, this will be the man to call. We'll put his contact information below. I'm Jonathan Wiseman. This is The Grit. Appreciate y'all tuning in. If y'all got some value out of this, be sure to click that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You'll be able to continue seeing us. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.
Hey.